Deep right field. Down the line it goes. Castellanos is out of room. It's out of runner goes. 3-2 pitch hit down the line. Is it fair? It is a fair ball. Into the corner. Off and running. Chu. Yu Chang around third. He's going to score easily. And into second. Hit hard. Hit deep. Up and out. Goes Amed Rosario. And there's a fly ball. Left field. It's deep. It's up. It's gone to the porch. Hit pretty well. Deep left center field. It is gone to Souvenir City.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Guardians of the CLE podcast. I am Max Goldstein, your host, joined as always by my co-host Mel Kirby. And tonight we're just going to be covering, what the Guardians have been up to in the last couple of weeks. Spring training finally kicked off, so that's a bright note for all of us to share with you today. Currently the Guardians are playing in a game right now. We're losing pretty bad, 19-5. We're in the bottom of the fifth right now. But Mel, what has this, what have the last couple of weeks in spring training told us about this team so far, and what can we expect moving forward?
Well, in this game so far, not a ton of positive to take from the 19-5. So far, they are 2-0 on the spring. They also do have the tie. They tied the Oakland A's yesterday. But the kids are really showing out. This game specifically, I actually have it on in the background. Gabriel Arias is 2 for 2 with an RBI double. He's batting .600 on the spring. I actually think there could possibly be an outside shot. He makes the team out of spring training. That would be great. I think the organization's just kind of waiting for him to force their hand. He is only 22 years old, as we've discussed in prior episodes. He skipped AA altogether. He went from high A to AAA last year after, COVID obviously wiped out the minor league season in 2020, but he's had an outstanding spring. Oscar Gonzalez is actually leading the team in home runs and RBIs. He's got a .571 batting average. And, the knocks on Oscar Gonzalez have kind of always been he doesn't walk, and he's going to be kind of a liability defensively. But the way I see it is if they're thinking about playing Franmil Reyes out in the outfield anyways, I don't really see the difference there, as far as defense goes. I think they're just desperate to get some offense out of the outfield. And, I've mentioned before, I don't think there should ever be a scenario where Miles Straw is your best offensive outfielder. He was a fourth outfielder on the Houston Astros, and we know the success that the Astros have. But Bobby Bradley Zimmer both continue to struggle. They're a combined 1 for 10 on the spring with 6 strikeouts. So just more of the all or nothing type out of those two. And we're going to get into some more of what Chris Cincinnati has had to say this spring a little bit later in the episode, but I think they're making it abundantly clear they want to roll with some of these kids. We all kind of expected them to make a splash with this rebrand, and it really sounds like they are prioritizing this young talent. I'm not sure that they're ready to decide who they want to trade yet. We see this surplus of, high level prospects on our 40-man roster right now. And I think it's just getting the proper evaluation to make sure they're not trading away that next star. So I think we're going to see, which has kind of been the front office's MO, for years, is they don't want a championship window. They want to be consistently competitive. They kind of want to retool and, kind of mesh that, a few veterans here and there with these young guys coming up. And that's the way they've remained so consistently competitive. So I think going on through the rest of this spring, will they make, a minor trade, a minor signing here or there, but just seeing how these kids progress, like, spring training to the veterans isn't anything spectacular, but to these kids, it's everything. They show up and they're ready to play. And I think that's what makes it so fun, is what are they going to make of this opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a nice introduction. We had 2 games against the White Sox and Mel, help me out here. Who was that? Our Cincinnati Reds, right? And we right. So we won those games handily. It was fun to see everybody out there again, and we got baseball. So as rough as today's game is going, as rough as some of our starting pitching has been, as well as the the lack of productivity coming out of those outfield spots, a lot to be excited about, especially with everything sort of clicking together and the guys getting back in action. But what really is, keeping me excited is just the fact that, it's like these little posts that I see. Shane Bieber open an extension. Now, I know that we've heard things like this in the past. Francisco Lindor said the same thing. Jose Ramirez, right? We've yet to see that extension actually signed, but the fact that Shane Bieber wants to stay within this organization moving forward, it's going to come down to how much money are we going to throw his way, because he's definitely a top 5 pitching prospect in the entire major league. So kind of just taking it a day at a time here, and really excited, as we approach opening day.
I would think if they're not going to go out and make kind of these big splash trades, we mentioned they were in till the last minute on Jesse Winker and Matt Olson, but right. The fact is the fans are tired of hearing like, oh, we had interest in these guys, we just lost out. That's like saying you had an interest in somebody in high school, but you never dated them. Like, it's just a moot point down the road. Nobody cares who you were interested in. Like, what did you do with it? Right. And that's, I think, what's frustrating to fans is obviously there's already a big group of fans upset about the name change. We already know this. So I think, I'm fine with seeing these young kids play, but here's the thing. It's got to be like the real prospects in my eyes. Like Oscar Mercado and Bradley Zimmer, to me, they're past their prospect stage, right? Like they've each had 3, 4, 5 years to kind of prove what they can do at the major league level. And they haven't been consistently productive. Zimmer's is a lot of injuries. He's been beat up a lot. We remember him running into the center field wall and injuring that shoulder,
Right.
And I'm fine with it if we can see Gabriel Arias, we can see Andres Jimenez, we can see Stephen Kwan and Richie Palacios battle it out for left field. But then it's like you got to mix some veterans in still. So I would think, Michael Conforto is still out there. And it's probably unrealistic at this point, because why wouldn't you have signed him by now? But right now it's kind of a mystery. I know you're going to get into some of the other free agency things and where these guys have gone, but I think it's really interesting that Michael Conforto, it's kind of like a secret. Like the Guardians have been linked to him over the past week, which is no surprise. He would fit perfectly on this team. And it's my opinion, like sign him immediately, because he could make a big difference in that outfielder where you can kind of allow for the kids to play in left, Bobby Bradley to hopefully figure it out with Josh Naylor at first base. And we could have a pretty decent offense surrounding Fran Mill and Jose and Miles Straw leading it off, and, just kind of fit in Ahmed Rosario, because he can hit. We know he's not the greatest defensive shortstop, but the reality is he's probably not in, the 5, 6, 7 year plans of the organization. He's doing a great job now. I think he was a great pickup in that Lindor deal, but just with this surplus of talent, it's like, we got to see what these guys can do. And that's why those Trevor Story rumors kind of made no sense, with just all the young talent we have, but it's all we have right now is rumors.
Yeah. I mean, all we're really working with now is rumors. We haven't really seen any sort of big or impactful splashes so far on our end. But, just to kick that off into, what we've seen around the league, guys like Zach Greinke, he returned to Kansas City where he began his career. He signed a 1-year, $13 million contract. Carlos Correa signed with Minnesota in a shocking turn of events for 3 years, $105 million contract.
Are they competing? Are they trying to compete now?
I think they got a ton of backlash from last season when they were projected to win the AL Central, and they finished either 4th or 5th. I'm not sure, but it was definitely bottom of the division. So they went out. They signed Carlos Correa. Who else did they get? They got let's see,
Sonny Gray.
Yeah, Sonny Gray, that's where it is. So they also, got some pitching help as well. And Sonny Gray, Gary Sanchez, Gio Urshela, they also dumped Josh Donaldson's contract. So, they're kind of doing what we expected to do in this offseason. Not a total rebuild or not necessarily just throwing all your money into one basket, but they've really gone out and made the adjustments that they've needed to make this offseason.
Yeah, and I think for them the big thing is, can Byron Buxton stay healthy? He's the catalyst of that offense. He's dynamite in center field. And I like what they did with their Sonny Gray pickup. They needed some starting pitching. They still don't have much else as far as pitching goes, but they're going to be a great offense. I think they're going to be a tough offense to get out. Obviously the Guardians are going to see them 18, 19 times this season. So, it's going to be a challenge for our pitching staff consistently facing that lineup. But, they're kind of going back and forth. All right, we're dumping Josh Donaldson's contract, but we're getting a little bit of talent in return. Oh, screw it, we're going to sign Carlos Correa to this huge deal. And it's got opt-outs after, I think, the first 2 years. So it's interesting. I don't mind it. They're spending money, so I'm sure their fans are happy. They're making an effort to kind of bolster their roster, spend a little bit, because that's what we're begging for over here. Do something.
Right. And we've seen Minnesota in the past just build these incredible lineups before, and not hasn't necessarily won them a division or, once or twice it has, right? But if you go all the way back to the days of like Joe Mauer, this team has always had offensive power, and they really lack on the pitching and defensive end. So that's where I think Sonny Gray can come in and have a revitalizing year for his career. So he's certainly, not exactly who he used to be when he emerged into the league, but he's definitely an arm that you would sign any day of the week. But just a couple different names that we've mentioned here before who signed elsewhere. Trevor Story, the story of the week, no pun intended there. But he signed a 6-year, $140 million deal with the Boston Red Sox. So I guess we're going to be seeing Trevor Story within the AL for years to come, and he's certainly going to upgrade that lineup for sure. So Jock Peterson as well, another guy that we brought up in the podcast and in weeks in the past. He signed a 1-year short-term deal with the San Francisco Giants for $6 million. And he was kind of a guy that I was looking at, as well as Conforto, that could fill that spot for Mercado or Bradley Zimmer out in right field, right or left field. What are your thoughts on those signings?
I think it's interesting that Trevor Story went to Boston, because for a while he was pretty adamant he wanted to stay at shortstop. And obviously Boston has Xander Bogaerts, and, they're looking to ink him to a long-term deal as well. But I guess it gives Boston a little more wiggle room if, Xander Bogaerts is, demanding a little more money than they'd like to pay him. They can just slide Trevor Story right over to shortstop. And, they still have that franchise cornerstone shortstop, which, is big for them. But his market definitely started to heat up once Correa signed. There's always those few guys that's kind of holding the market up a little bit. But, yeah, Jock Peterson's a name that I've thrown around. Obviously, he's probably nearing the end of, everyday playing time. But he'd be a great platoon bat out there. I mean, just in a platoon fashion, he would have provided more than Bradley Zimmer, Oscar Mercado is going to give us on a regular basis. But yeah, I mean, Conforto's still out there. I'm still holding out this blind optimism they can maybe pull something off. Just one move.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And I know that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mel, I think you'd argue to say that our pitching is more important than filling out that those outfield spots, because, I see here that the Detroit Tigers, another team in our division, made a bullpen move. They signed Andrew Chafin for 2 years, $13 million, and the Angels signed Ryan Tepera for 2 years, $14 million. So
these pissed me off. These really pissed me off.
They're there for the taking. They're cheap. You're paying these guys $6-7 million a year to, a solidified bullpen arm, and we didn't go out and chase them. Now I don't know if we didn't go chase them, but we didn't offer them clearly enough.
And the problem here, we know how important the pitching is for the Guardians. They're going to be a team built around their pitching.
Right.
And in that bullpen, I mean, Emmanuel Clase has the most experience. They only have 6 guys in their bullpen right now, and Clase's got the most experience. And as we know, he was top 5 in Rookie of the Year voting last year. So that just goes to show you how little experience. And if you want to be competitive, you're going to have those high leverage situations. And guys like Chafin and Tepera, they're proven high leverage guys. They can pitch in that 6th, 7th, 8th inning for you and get guys out. And that's kind of what worries me is, can Anthony Ghost throw strikes consistently? Is walking guys going to be an issue for him? Can Nick Sandlin stay healthy? Injuries have always been the concern for him. And once you have those shoulder, upper arm injuries, those can start creeping back up. And, next thing you know, you're out 4 or 5 weeks, half a season. James Karinchak, is he going to get some of those issues under control? The early word out of camp is, Carl Willis and the pitching staff is liking what they're seeing out of him. They're seeing some similarities to June of last year before he kind of melted down in July and onwards. But, this bullpen, and, we mentioned today, Sam Hentges and Logan S. Allen, the elder Logan Allen, they're two guys who are said to kind of be some inning eaters candidates. Those like the Phil Maton from last year, who can come in the second, third inning and just eat a few innings for you. But
right.
I mean, today, I was just telling Max before the podcast, Sam Hentges has on 135, I don't even know how you say it, on 135 earned run average so far in spring. He gave up 5 earned runs, 4 hits, 1 walk in, and got 1 out today in spring. And this was against like the Texas BC lineup. This wasn't like Corey Seager and Marcus Semien he was facing. And that's the concerning thing is, he jumped up from AA last year too. I'm not saying give up on him altogether, but he just might need some more seasoning down in AAA. But you got guys like Cody Morris and Nick Mikolajchak, who I would love to see, if they could fill one of those holes in that bullpen. But it would have been really nice to scoop up one of these veteran guys just to kind of be the Brian Shaw, the Blake Parker of the bullpen, provide that veteran leadership out there for these kids.
So, that just leaves me asking the question, like, what are we planning to do moving forward? We've mentioned this in the podcast before. This team is built around their pitching. It's built around their defense. And I even mentioned specifically, plays last year that Francisco Lindor would have made that Ahmed Rosario did not. Obviously, he's grown, and I like what I'm seeing out of him, especially this spring training. I think he's going to have a phenomenal year, but it goes beyond that. And it looks like we have the starting pitching down, should everybody stay healthy. And, we're waiting for that big splash on the offensive end, but what's the plan with the back end of the bullpen? It seems like we're running out of time.
Yeah, and this is kind of how the Guardians front office operates. They kind of wait. They wait for the big money to be spent. They wait for the well to dry up, and they go get that Brian Shaw type of guy. And I know people are joking on Twitter about it, but Brian Shaw might be back, and I know that's going to upset some people. And it's just how they operate. They might want that 1 year close to veteran minimum type of guy, or maybe a Dylan Betances from the Yankees who's coming off, some serious injuries, and hope for a comeback here. Andrew Miller's still out there. We love Andrew Miller. He's not what he was, but he had a good year last year. He spent most of his offseason at the negotiating table for the lockout, but I'm sure he was getting some work into. He could be another lefty they could bring in if Hentges doesn't work out. But I think that's the biggest thing is just those kind of question marks. They have to get some type of veteran in there somehow, because Mikolajchak and Cody Morris could be great, but they're still going to be rookies.
Right.
And Mikolajchak was Akron's closer last year, so he hasn't even pitched at AAA. So I highly doubt they would leave Goodyear with him as, a high leverage type of guy in their bullpen. So, look for him to sign, I don't want to say washed up, but, an older veteran reliever, and kind of hope for the best in the bullpen. And I know we were all hoping for more, but, as far as the bullpen goes, I have different theories offensively, but as far as the bullpen goes, that kind of seems like the route they're going to take.
And I'm glad you brought up guys like Brian Shaw and excuse me, and Andrew Miller, because you just mentioned Clase has the most experience in our bullpen, and he was a rookie. That's not good. Now, look, we need at least, if they're not even going to play, bring some veteran leadership into the bullpen. If they're having injury problems later on in the season, just to have that advising and that coaching mentality for the younger guys on your squad, it pays a long way, and that's kind of, the make or break for the Cleveland Indians and Guardians every single season, because we have guys like, how pivotal was Jason Giambi when he had his little stint with us? I know he's not a pitcher, but I'm just going veteran style.
Nick Swisher even. I thought he'd actually last longer.
Yeah, it's. I mean, and we've seen it. The Goon Squad is what they called them a couple of years back. T-shirts and everything, right? And those were years where we had postseasons, and those guys weren't everyday players, but just their presence, I'm sure, it paid its own dividends in our locker room and in our clubhouse. But where do you think things are headed when it comes down to what we need to do in the next 3 weeks before the season starts?
Yeah, so I think what's interesting here too is we heard pre-lockout, during lockout, post-lockout that this team was in a position to add some payroll. I mean, there's really nowhere to go but up. They're bottom 5 in the league as it stands right now. Obviously, that's not factoring in these, arbitration figures that are going to be exchanged over the next couple of days. But, the David Blitzer minority ownership front's been kind of silent lately. And I've been seeing a lot of things that his team's actually bidding on a Premier League team now. So it almost makes you wonder, is something falling apart with the Guardians minority ownership, that they're out bidding on another team? Maybe they're not getting that influx of cash that they expected to get. Because what's interesting to me is, like I mentioned, they were in on Matt Olson and Jesse Winker. So that tells me they came out of the gate post-lockout looking to add some, very good major league talent. They fell through. As I've explained, I don't blame them for backing out of either one of those just because of what was attached to both of those deals. But it makes you think, did they not have a contingency plan for if they didn't get those two guys? Was it Olson, Winker, or bust? You would expect them to kind of have a plan C, or who are we going to sign then? Or, who else can we get on the phone with? But it kind of feels like they just threw their arms up like, well, we didn't get them. We tried. Guess we're going to run Zimmer and Mercado out there. And their big thing is they don't want to adversely affect the long term by bringing in help for the short term. So, to me, that means, if Trevor Story wanted a 1-year prove-it deal, that may have been why they were linked to him, if they were even truly linked to him. Kind of a 1-year stopgap, give Brian Rocchio, Gabriel Arias, give those guys another year in the minors, but they're not going to sign Trevor Story to a 6-year deal. They're not going to sign Carlos Correa to a 3-year deal. I understand not wanting to adversely affect the long term. They feel this formula gives them that ability to build really good teams that can last a long time. Not, we have to win in the next 3 years or we're going to have to tear it all down. But Chris Antonetti was mentioning all this on, I think, the first spring training broadcast when, the guys are kind of asking him, what's the plan here coming out the gate? And Terry Francona has even made comments over the past, I think it was today even, that, it's tough watching all these other teams go out and spend money. We really do like what we have here, but it would be nice to be able to add some more talent. And then you have Dallas Keuchel on the White Sox, who's saying we always find a way to win, but he would like to see our ownership pay our players more. And to me, that's just humiliating. You have other players in your division calling you out, saying you're cheap, basically. You need to pay guys more. And he's not wrong. And he's probably become a big fan of the fans here in Cleveland. He's a guy the fans like now. You're calling out with a platform everything that we're sitting on Twitter arguing about. Why aren't the Dolans spending money? So like I mentioned earlier, I'm fine. I've kind of resigned myself to the fact that nothing big's going to happen. Those big deals post-lockout didn't happen. Again, I'm fine with, playing Arias and Jimenez up the middle, Juan Palacios left field, if you can sign a Michael Conforto for right field. Because it just seems like if they really do want the young talent to play like they say that they do, guys like Zimmer, Mercado, Bobby Bradley, they're blocking this young talent. So it's do you want to see the Ariases and the Rocchios and the Palacioses and the Quans, or do you want to see, the washed up prospects who you already know what you're going to get? 1 for 10 with 6 strikeouts. It's not a large sample size, but this is what Bobby Bradley and Bradley Zimmer do over the course of a season. It's just who they are. They may get hot and hit a couple bombs here and there, but majority of the time they're going to strike out. And that's just the type of hitters they are. So it's I think they're kind of in this awkward middle ground where it's they want to add some talent, but I don't know that they're getting the okay from ownership to do that. But it's like they're not quite ready to bring these young guys up and give them a real shot. So it's like I kind of think they got to choose, like, do you really want to play the kids, or like why are guys like Zimmer or Mercado still in the lineup? You got to choose.
Right. Yeah, fully agree with everything you just said. And I like how you brought up Terry Francona saying, like, look, we love the guys we get, or excuse me, we love the guys that we have, but it's always, no team is perfect. We're always looking to upgrade. But another thing that is sort of comforting to me is, although we haven't truly seen the result of a World Series, is Terry Francona wouldn't be here wasting his time. Right. I know that he himself is at the end of his career, but think about how long he's been the manager of this franchise. It's been, what, 7-8 years already. So it kind of just shows you the faith that he has in that ownership and the front office, and the flexibility that they give him throughout the year potentially. So, yeah, I know we all want to see guys that are new to the franchise, new to the team, new guys in the clubhouse. And, like you've said in the past, trade for a guy like Austin Meadows or Sean Murphy, Ramon Laureano. Bring somebody in that we've all heard about. Because when it came to that catcher, Maley,
nobody cares.
Look,
we don't care.
I've heard of the guy because I watch baseball. If you don't watch baseball, you don't know who this kid is, right?
And he's not buying tickets. Like, he's not bringing butts to the stadium. He's not filling seats.
I'll be looking for the random jersey tracker on Twitter if you can somehow show up on one of those. Yeah, that's a nice little highlight. But yeah, just to recap everything that we've spoken about, the Guardians need to make some sort of move. It's going to come at some point, hopefully. I mean, I don't want to eat my words here, but it's got to come at some point. And I know that everybody's just sort of getting into the swing of things at spring training, and things are slowly starting to come together. But just to recap everything before today's game, how does the squad look, Mel? It seems like we're competing a little bit. We've seen some bright spots, but who would you say has had the biggest impact in the spring training so far?
I think the young pitching. The major league pitchers haven't really been able to come in and pitch in games yet, just because they have some catching up to do. These minor league guys have been in camp, for the last month that the major league guys weren't. But Tanner Tully, he opened the spring pitching 3 scoreless and hitless innings. He had 4 strikeouts. Nick Mikolajchak, who I'm a big fan of, he pitched the scoreless, hitless inning with 1 strikeout. And Aaron Pinto, he also pitched 2 scoreless innings with 2 strikeouts. So up until today, this young pitching has been phenomenal. And like I mentioned, you can't blame today's debacle on the young guys, really, because it was Logan S. Allen and Sam Hentges, the 2 guys in the game who pitched that have major league experience. Nothing's changed. They still can't get anybody out. So it's still really early. It's really good to see, the young talent on display. And I will say, like, I was watching the game when I got out of work today, and they're interviewing Josh Naylor, and it's just so good to see Josh Naylor on my TV again. Like, positive, he said he's feeling great. He's ready to go. He took live batting practice off Aaron Savali and Anthony Ghost yesterday. He said it's great to kind of gear him up to playing games. So hopefully we get to see him get a few at-bats, before they leave Goodyear. But that's just the Josh Naylor update. But also Yu Chang's looked really good. He's hitting 400 on the spring with a home run and a couple of RBIs. So I still think Yu Chang's got a shot at that utility spot. Again, they kind of got to figure out between Chang, Miller, and Clement who they kind of want to keep as that, utility guy. I think Yu Chang could also be great trade bait. I think he provides a lot of value. Yeah. He came up as a shortstop, and we know there's no room for more shortstops in this organization, but another organization might find that he has some value over there. So I'd watch that utility spot, the shortstop position. What are they going to do with Rosario? I know they've mentioned giving him some time out in left field. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how they rotate Ahmed Rosario, Andres Jimenez, and Gabriel Arias at shortstop. And then Juan Palacios and maybe even Rosario out in left field. And obviously right field is still just a black hole right now. So teams exchange arbitration figures today and tomorrow. So it's going to be interesting to see if this kind of pushes the front office into a little bit of action, because if they're not going to make any big splashes they really got to start talking those extensions you mentioned with Shane Bieber and Jose. At least extend somebody, show the fans you're really trying to keep this young core together, because if they come out and they play these kids and it doesn't go well, I think we could definitely expect to see Jose traded at the deadline, which is just going to be painful to see.
Yeah, and even guys like Franmil Reyes, I would love to see play for the Guardians for years to come. But you brought up Yu Chang being a highlight in spring training so far.
Yeah,
that's the guy that I love, man, because he just works hard. He's gone through his ups and downs, and to see him playing well in spring right now, I truly do wish him the best if we end up putting him on the trade block. But I would much rather see a guy like Ernie Clement or Gabriel Arias, like one of those guys. Yeah. I'd much rather see shipped out for some, whether it be cash, prospects, picks, whatever it might be. But Yu Chang, he's proven he can play in this league. He's got some good pop. He has some nice defensive plays as well. But really, overall, he can play anywhere on the infield, first base included, as well as spots in the outfield. So I think he's locked himself down for a spot. Hopefully they don't move on from him, because I think he can be pivotal down the road this season. But that, basically wraps it up for tonight's episode. We're going to see if by next week we have any updates for you. Hopefully we do. If we don't, we have an issue. But we're going to have more updates for you guys next week. Indians are slated to have a bunch more spring training games as well. So we're going to be able to see a lot more guys come into the picture. But always, need to mention to rate, view, subscribe on all the major platforms, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and YouTube as well. We shoot video here that you can catch on that app. But really wanted to thank everybody for tuning in for another great episode. We finally have baseball underway again, and we're slowly approaching that opening day of April 7th. So can't wait to join you guys next week, and I'll kick it off to Mel to close us off here.
Yeah, like you started the episode mentioning, it's just great to have baseball back on my TV again. I think on Thursday I turned on like a Boston Red Sox, Minnesota Twins spring training game for no reason other than to just see live baseball again. And I get it. I understand the frustrations of all you guys that this team has not came out and spent money. But let's not forget, this team was extremely competitive last year. And before our entire starting rotation went down with injury at the same time, all five were out. We were right neck and neck with the White Sox. So if we would have stayed healthy last year, I really believe we would have made the playoffs, even with as atrocious as our offense was. And I can't make any. If they don't upgrade right field, I'm just as frustrated as everybody else, because I think these kids can bring a lot of good to this team, but I think adding someone to that right field spot is really going to help cover up the holes we have at catcher and first base right now. So it's going to remain to be seen. Keep an eye on today and tomorrow, with these arbitration figures. Like Max said, hopefully next week we have some news to bring you. And also keep an eye on Tommy Pham. If this Michael Conforto market doesn't heat up, Tommy Pham's a veteran to look for in right field, who I would absolutely take over Mercado and Zimmer. So we just got to stay patient and trust this front office. They're the most consistently competitive team in town. So we just got to hope for the best. But yeah, make sure to give Max and I a follow at Mello_NIE91 and at MaxwellG24. And make sure to head over to www.believelandmediallc.com, where you can catch up on all past podcast episodes of all the Cleveland sports teams, as well as read all of our written content. So just to emphasize, rate, review, subscribe on YouTube and all major podcast platforms. And we want to thank you guys for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good week.